Well, this story begins in London in the 19th century with Basil Howard, who is finishing a painting. Lord Henry, his friend, arrives and tells him that he is doing a good portrait and that he should exhibit it. However, Basil refuses because he tells him that he painted a man that he met at a party and it's an inspiration for him. Dorian Gray arrives and Harry wants to meet him. Basil accepts but on the condition of not influencing him. Lord Henry begins to talk with Dorian and praises her beauty and youth, but warns him that these qualities will not last forever and that they will eventually disappear. He suggests that he lives a life to the fullest. Basil finishes the portrait when Dorian sees him, and he worries that when he is old, his painting will still look young. Basil proposes to break the painting, but he is still loving it. Basil and Dorian know each other better, and Dorian trusts him more, tells him that he has fallen in love with an actress, and they plan to marry. Her name is Sybil Vane. They went to see Sybil perform, but that day she didn't act well at all. Dorian was disappointed. He realized that he was in love with the way she acted, and not with her, so he breaks up with her. When Dorian arrived at his house, he realized that the portrait changes and he has a mocking face towards himself. The next day, Harry tells Dorian that Sybil died. With Dorian set out to live a life of eternal joy and infinite pleasure, with the portrait has its marks of age instead of his own body. The next day, Basil went to offer his condolence to Dorian, noticing a change of attitude in him and blaming Lord Henry. He asks if he is no longer happy with his portrait. He takes the cloth off him. Dorian gets angry, he hides the portrait and the attic unlocked. Over years, Dorian followed the philosophy of the book that Lord Henry gave him. With that, Dorian followed his ideals of living life. He saw his portrait pass over time, but he feared that someone would steal it. One day, Dorian meets Basil in the street. Basil warns him of the rumors that they are saying about him, and he realizes that Dorian is no longer the same. Dorian tells him that to know the truth, he must see through his soul, so he takes him to where the painting was. Dorian shows him the portrait. It is now ugly, old, and with an evil face, so he asks how it had happened. So he told him the promise of eternal joy that he had made in his study. Basil tells him to repent. Full of hatred, Dorian kills Basil and pretends nothing happened. Then he meets with Henry again and he asks about Basil. Dorian confesses that he had killed him and that the portrait had been stolen. Finally, out of curiosity, Dorian went to see his portrait to see how it was and realized that it was worse than the last time, uglier. He slashes the portrait, destroys it, and in that the police enter in his house because they never opened it. And in that they found an ugly man living in the front of the painting, and the painting was like the day it was painted. From this book, I learned that nothing in excess is good, and that nothing is forever. Over time we grow, we change our way of thinking and our physical appearance. Also, that we must not obsess over anything, and that the beauty and youth are not everything. I can apply this learning in my life so as not to fall in this narcissism. Love myself as I am, respect others, live life to the fullest without harming others, and thus have a balance in my life in all aspects. There are people who are guiding the stereotypes that they impose on us and that we see every day on social networks lately. Some of these stereotypes are not of having a perfect life with a perfect body and luxuries. However, we must love ourselves and not only look at our physical appearance, but also our health. So it is important to feel good about ourselves and take into account our mental health.